Okay, so how can a common, everyday verb completely change its meaning, its function, and literally its entire personality with just one tiny extra word? Seriously, think about that for a second. You've got a word you use all the time, right? But the second you attach a little preposition to it, it transforms into something else entirely. It's basically a linguistic shapeshifter, and it is absolutely one of the most fascinating and, let's be real, sometimes frustrating features of the English language. All right, let's quickly check out our roadmap for today. First up, the phrasal verb formula. Second, morning commute movement. Third, controlling your environment. Fourth, the double meaning twist. And finally, pro tips for learners.
So, Section 1, the phrasal verb formula.
Think of this as the essential linguistic math that underpins everything we're talking about today. A phrasal verb is elegantly simple in its construction. It's just a combination of two distinct parts. A verb plus a particle. The verb provides the core action. You know, words like get, turn, go, put, or take. The particle is usually a short little word like a preposition or an adverb. Words like up, on, off, or down. When you fuse these two together, a kind of chemical reaction happens, and bam, a brand new meaning is created.
Moving right along to Section 2, morning commute movement.
The absolute best way to grasp phrasal verbs is to see them living in their natural habitat. So let's walk through a typical day in the life journey together. Take a look at this sentence. I got up at 6:30 this morning. The base verb get generally means to obtain or acquire something. But watch what happens when we attach the particle up. Get up instantly describes the physical action of rising from bed to start the day. It's entirely separate from getting an object. And as the sentence concludes, I'm tired now, which, let's be honest, is a very relatable consequence of getting up at 6:30.
Now look at how the phrase get on pairs perfectly with the action of boarding. We should get on the bus. It's leaving in 5 minutes. The action here isn't just about moving, it's about entering a large mode of public transport. The phrasal verb adds this crucial layer of directional movement right onto the core verb.
And let's see how this builds the narrative arc of a morning commute. Just as we have to get on a bus to travel, we execute the exact opposite action when we arrive. Here, the family has reached their destination, and the text reads, "We got off the bus at the City Museum." Notice that rhythmic contrast? On and off? They're a pair. If you learn get on, you immediately have the framework to learn get off. It's basically a 2-for-1 deal.
And of course, no morning commute is complete without a little bit of panic, right? The phrase here, "Come on, we're late," highlights how a phrasal verb can act almost like an emotional exclamation. The verb come usually implies movement toward the speaker, but when you add on, it totally transforms into an expression of encouragement or, in this case, sheer impatience. It perfectly captures that fast-paced feeling of rushing through a busy morning.
All right, Section 3, controlling your environment.
So, after the hustle and bustle of the commute, we finally arrive back home. And phrasal verbs are just as crucial for describing how we interact with our own personal spaces. Notice the remote control scenario here. He always turns on the TV at 9 o'clock to watch the news. The verb turn originally involves physically rotating something, like a steering wheel or a doorknob. But in modern usage, paired with on, it just means to activate an electronic device.
The verb turn is incredibly versatile when it comes to controlling our environment. Just look at these variations. If it's a sunny day, you turn off the light. If you can't hear the broadcast, you turn up the TV to make it louder. But if the noise is literally deafening, you turn down the TV because it's way too loud. Notice the cadence of these opposite pairs, on and off for power, up and down for volume. It is a wonderfully logical system once you start recognizing the pattern.
Now, while that TV is on in the background, you might find yourself deep in a conversation, saying, "Go on talking, it's very interesting." Here, go on doesn't mean physical travel at all. It just means to continue an action without stopping.
Which brings us to Section 4, the double meaning twist.
Okay, so just when you think you have these phrasal verbs completely figured out, English throws a wonderful, complex curveball at you. Note that one phrasal verb can often have different meanings. These shape-shifting verbs can wear more than one disguise. A combination you thought you absolutely knew might mean something entirely different depending on the context of the sentence. It's a real plot twist.
Let's directly juxtapose a phrase we literally just learned. First, we have our environmental control, turn down the TV, meaning someone made it not so loud. But compare that to turn down the invitation. In this context, it has absolutely nothing to do with volume. It means politely refusing or rejecting a social offer. The literal physical action of lowering a dial is metaphorically mapped right onto the social action of declining an offer. How brilliant is that?
Let's look at another striking contrast, this time with the phrase, take off. Consider two vastly different scenarios. Scenario 1, take off at 12:30. This describes a massive, literal movement, a multi-ton machine leaving the ground and ascending into the sky. But in scenario 2, take off her shoes. This is a simple, everyday, quiet action of removing clothing from your feet. One phrase, two wildly different scales of action, entirely dependent on whether we're talking about an airport runway or a living room floor.
And finally, Section 5, Pro Tips for Learners.
We've seen how dynamic and honestly sometimes tricky these verbs can be. So how do we actually master them effectively? Well, a great strategy is creating a special page in your notebook to organize these verbs into logical groups. Instead of memorizing a massive random list, categorize them in a way that just makes sense to your brain. For example, under clothes, we group put on and take off because they're direct opposites related to getting dressed. Under movement, we group get on and get off, along with phrases like go off, which means to leave. Grouping vocabulary by theme or by opposing pairs significantly lowers the cognitive load and really boosts your memorization.
We've unpacked the formula, ridden the morning commute, controlled our environment, navigated those tricky double meanings, and laid out a proven strategy for studying. By recognizing the powerful combination of a simple verb and a tiny particle, you unlock a much richer, much more natural way of expressing yourself. So take a look at your own day, think about your own habits. Which phrasal verb will you consciously master first in your daily routine? The moment you turn off this explainer, the real practice begins. Keep observing, keep categorizing, and I'll catch you next time.